Hi there and welcome to another Raid Shadow Legends video. I'm IceMan and today we are going to be taking a look at all the new champs that have come into the game. I will say right at the outset there is one that I'm not entirely sure he's new, but I'm not sure when on earth he came in, and I don't remember seeing him before, so I've got him in the list anyway. If I'm wrong and he's not new, I do apologise, but hey, I've not noticed him before, so we'll see. Anyway, we'll make a start. This is going to take a while because there's a lot of champions to go through. We currently have a list of, if I'm correct about this, we have 19 new champions to go through, so this is going to take a while. And that's not counting the new fusion, of course. I've purposely left her off. I've covered her in previous videos when we found out what her skills were when she was coming out and all the rest of it, so she's been left out intentionally. So anyway, let's take a look at who we've got here. So we first have up Gerhard the Stone. He's a magic affinity, Bannerlord champion, attack based. He's A1, ringing blow, attacks one enemy, has a 15% chance of placing a stun debuff for one turn, has a 40% chance of placing a stun debuff for one turn instead if the target has more than 75% turn meter. It's an A1, so it's not a massive chance, but it's not too bad, you know, okay ability. Then he's A2, Show of Valor, places a 30% increased crit rate buff and a 30% increased crit damage buff on the champion for 2 turns and attacks one enemy. Will ignore 25% of the target's defense, will ignore 50% of the target's defense if instead the target is under a increased defense buff. So, you know, this in theory could hit really hard, depends on the multipliers. We don't know yet, we will have to wait and see. He's A3, his passive, Exemplar, is immune to fear, true fear, freeze, provoke, sleep and stun debuffs. So this guy's kind of really going to be really cool for the arena, I think, and this is on a 3-turn cooldown when booked. All these new champions, I will state at the outset, are extremely book hungry. I think there's only one on this list that doesn't have a load. I think Plarium are going completely nuts, but you know, hey, when aren't they? You know, it's some good stuff, here's some bad stuff. I would have liked if the fusion wasn't quite so crappy and was a more traditional old style fusion where we can actually use our champs that we've been saving for them. You know, it's all well and good doing the fragments and everything, and they intersperse those anyway, but when you do an old school fusion, why not make it a proper old school fusion? They're so much easier for anyone who's been in the game for any length of time to do. Even people who haven't been in that long can have at least saved some of the rares to do it, so they've got more of a chance to when it's still less work to do. Anyway, little rant of Plarium over for doing that, but you know, he's got an aura of increased ally resist in the Doom Tower battles by 50%. So obviously they're thinking he's going to be good for the Doom Tower. I'm guessing that's the deal with all of these champions, really, to be fair. Okay, and the next one on this list is Alaric the Hooded. Is A1, Red Fury, attacks one enemy, has a 30% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 7.5%, decreases the turn meter by a further 3% for each buff on the target. So this is quite a cool A1, I have to say. Other than that, I can't say I think much of this champion. Demand Chivalry, attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of removing 2 random buffs from the target before attacking, has a 75% chance of stealing 2 random buffs instead if the target has 4 or more buffs. You know, it's what it is, it steals buffs, great. Again, extremely book hungry. I wouldn't have the books for them, and without the books I don't know how useful they're really going to be. Is A3, Crimson Warlord, attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack buff and a 50% decrease accuracy debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. Is what it is, can come down to 4, it's not too bad. Bada bing, bada boom, let's keep going. Increases ally attack in faction crypts. Okay, fair enough. I believe That might be all the... Oh no, there's one more here. We have a rare Dagger. Look familiar? A Rowan reskin by any chance? I do like the ponytail coming out the back there, and it looks kind of cool. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each critical hit decreases the target's turn meter by 4%. So obviously that could be an 8% turn meter decrease. It's okay, it's not brilliant. Maybe if you put them in relentless and stuff, get them going fast, you can get a lot more turn meter reduction there. Champions like Allure I think tend to be a bit better. I still say Allure would be tons better if her A1 was actually AoE instead. And it should just be epic for what she's used for, you know. Attacks all enemies, A2 Precision Sabotage attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Again, if you want to get this up, it's going to take even more books, and this is where they're really letting us down here. It's not a bad A2, it's an AoE decreased defense. If you haven't managed to pull Stag Knight and you pull her, she'll at least do the job for you in Faction Wars and just about anywhere else in the game maybe. So she's not got as high a percent chance. Even when booked, it's still only going to be 75, 80 if you take Sniper. So it's good but not brilliant. Sword Break Knife attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a 25% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns. Has a 50% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack debuff instead. Sorry, here it's got a 50% chance of placing a 25% decrease attack for 2 turns, but it has a 50% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack debuff instead if they're under decreased defense. That's a hell of a mouthful, and yeah. Increase ally attack in faction crypts by 20%. Not bad. Let's move on. The High Elves. I don't think there's any new ones here at all. Obviously, Fix Neil, the new fusion, but we've covered her as we said. So we're moving on to the Sacred Order. And here's the one I'm not sure about. Inquisitor Shamiel. I've got a funny feeling I've seen him before, but then I'm not so sure. So anyway, we are going to cover him anyway. I believe he's the only one here. It's A1 Wreak Revenge, attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of decreasing the duration of a random buff on the target by 1 turn. Counter attacks with this skill each time an enemy places a debuff on an ally. These counter attacks will only deal 50% of the normal damage and cannot be critical. Still, every time that can be quite cool. He's going to be counter attacking every time one of your allies is taking a hit, so that's pretty cool, or taking a debuff I should say. Cow the Horrors attacks one enemy 3 times, will ignore 25% of the target's defense, will ignore a further 25% of the target's defense for each buff on this champion, places a True Fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn if this attack kills an enemy. I've got a funny feeling he might have been a Halloween champion, but I don't really remember that. His passive, each critical hit fills the champion's turn meter by 7.5%. Whenever an ally receives a fear or a True Fear debuff, this skill will instantly remove the debuff and will fill the ally's turn meter by 15%. This I think is really, really cool. He does sound like an interesting champion. Not broken, not absolutely amazing, but interesting with a couple of cool abilities. Okay, and we'll move on because there aren't any other new ones here, I believe. Now, I could be wrong, but I actually believe there are a couple of, or at least one uncommon new champion. So here we go, we've got our first one in the Barbarians. He looks absolutely amazing, I have to say. They've really outdone themselves this time with the character art. I think it is just superb. And yeah, very Thor-esque, but so cool. And at the same time you get that sort of Frosty vibe from him, which of course you should do, but I love the background and everything. He just looks amazing. So he's A1 Axe of All Winter, attacks one enemy 2 times, each hit has a 20% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn. Will ignore shield buffs if there are one or more enemies under freeze debuffs, which is really cool. Will also ignore block damage buffs if there are 2 or more enemies under freeze debuffs. Will also ignore 30% of the target's defense if there are 3 or more enemies under freeze debuffs. I have to say, this guy it is absolutely amazing. I'm not going to go through all his abilities. Actually, if we do that for every single champion, this video is going to be way too long. I'm going to start just giving you the overall, I think they're good or bad or whatever, and we'll have a quick look at them. He, by the way, I think is absolutely amazing. Next up we have Harken Greatblade. Looks like a reskin of Woad Painted, and a worse looking reskin of Woad Painted, I have to say, actually. She can place an extra hit if the attack's critical on her A1, so 2 hit her effectively, which is alright. She's got a 75% chance of placing a weaken for 2 turns before attacking, which is cool. So she places it before, so that's really cool anyway. Then we've got, I have to say, this is the best part about her A3. It's on a 5-turn cooldown, 4 if booked, but it's a debuff spread. Taking 2 random debuffs from the target and placing them on all enemies also extends the duration of those debuffs by 2 turns. Will not extend the duration of the debuffs of the initial target. Yeah, I think that's cool. So, do we have any more here? Yeah, I believe we've got a rare. We've got Tiger Soul. Obviously, anybody who's been playing the game for any time will recognise this skin. Soulbound Boya. She's got a 40% chance of placing a 5% poison. You can book that up to 60, which isn't bad. So that's kind of cool for clan boss maybe. She also brings a weaken on a 4-turn cooldown. So again, making her quite a cool champion for clan boss if you happen to not have a champion that does decrease defense and weaken. She can come in and do poisons and put the weaken on, so I think she's kind of cool. She's also got block buffs. It's for 2 turns, but it's the problem here is it's only on her. If it was on everyone, then she actually would be much better, but because it's just on her, it's okay, but again, not great. I mean, she's only a rare, so we don't expect too much, to be fair. Next up, we got the Ogre and Tribes. So first up, we have Roughstone. He has an attacks all enemy A1, so AoE, great. Put him in a stun set, he's going to do some damage for you, help you clear waves, so that's great. He's got a decrease the target's max HP by 15% of the damage inflicted, so he's going to be really cool for that Scarab boss, I believe it is, in the Doom Tower. And then he's got ignore defense and has a chance of granting an extra turn, so he can cycle through his turns. So yeah, he's an interesting character. He's not broken, he's not amazing, but he is, I think, going to be useful in the right circumstances. Next up, we have a Void Champion, Gear Grinder. I have to say, this one looks really cool. He's got a small continuous heal, but still a continuous heal on this champion for 1 turn on his A1 if the attack's critical, so you build him out for crit. Make sure he's getting that, and that'll help keep him up. Then he's got on his A2 a heals all allies by 15% of their max HP. It's a shame it's not his max HP, especially since he's actually a HP based champion. That's the one area I think they keep messing up. They really should, and it's on a 3-turn cooldown, so it's got a low cooldown, which is good. But if this had been off of his max HP, it just make him so it makes sense as well, more so, which unfortunately they don't like to do with these champs sometimes. Then you've got revives a dead ally with 50% HP and 50% turn meter, and this is on a 5-turn cooldown, so it's a pretty long cooldown. But Ogre Tribes is one of those areas where there's either no revivers currently, or wasn't, or there was very few, so he'll help a lot in faction wars, and he'll probably help quite a bit in Doom Tower. More so, I think, for the secret rooms. You know, where if you get a secret room that's like all Ogre Tribes and stuff, he'll come in quite handy there. And then he's got a faction Crypts HP by 25% aura, so not bad. And that's it for this one. Where were we? Ogre Tribes. So Lizardman. I believe there's at least one here. So we have Aox, the Rememberer. Pretty interesting champion. Anybody who's played World of Warcraft, he'll kind of look a bit familiar to you. He looks kind of like some chaps in there. He's got small chance, very small chance, like even when booked, to be fair, it's only 30. But he's got 2 hits as well, so you can sort of class that as maybe 60. Still not great. It's alright for an A1, but not amazing. But you can do a 5% poison on his A1 for 2 turns. He's got heals all allies by 10% of their max HP again, not his max HP. Heals each ally by an extra 2.5% for each debuff on the target. So, you know, nice little heal. Okay, not brilliant. Again, takes a lot of books if you want to get the cooldown down and increase the heal percentage, which you can, which is okay. Then we've got his A3. Places decrease attack and decrease crit rate. It's okay. He also does the turn meter, I believe. 75% chance of decreasing each enemy's turn meter by 20%. So kind of cool, but not amazing. Personally, I wouldn't rate him, but you know, I'd still rather have, although he's not a particularly great champion, there are better supports, I think, and I'd still rather Broadmoor for his revival. Nobody else there. Then we're into the Skinwalkers. Definitely don't have much here. Just the one, I believe, Panthera. Cool skin. Looks like a Thundercat, you know. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Each critical hit has a 50% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter, so it's a pretty nice A1. Not as good as a lore again, and look at the books. Damn, the books. This boy might as well go find a library and get those glasses on, because he's going to be reading for ages. Absolutely ages. If you can book this guy and half these new guys, you must be sitting on a stockpile. Is A2, attacks one enemy 2 times and places a heal reduction. You know, again, useful for Doom Tower, but so many books, and you're going to want to get the buff chance up if you can. Personally, I wouldn't be booking him because it's just crazy books. I probably wouldn't use him, to be fair, but hey, he's got a perfect veil and a reflect damage buff, but only on him. On a 3-turn cooldown in booked, at least with this one, if you land lucky on the books, it's straight cooldowns only. Then we're into the Orcs. What have we got in the Orcs? He's one of the Doom Tower ones. Oh, here we go. So we have Pig Sticker. Interesting skin. Not sure about the hood personally. I would have maybe left that off and had some flowing hair or something, but or at least be able to see the eyes. The A1 has a 50% chance of placing a 50% heal reduction, which is pretty cool on an A1. A lot of books again, 5 books. The A2 decreases the target's max HP by 20%. the A3 decreases target's max HP by 30% of damage inflicted. This champion, I have to say, is probably going to be one of the best you could possibly get for the Scarab King, hands down. She does decrease max turn meter by 50% overall with these 2 hits. So I mean, and they're not on massively long cooldowns. 4/4. You can reduce them if you want to waste the books on her. You know, she's a rare, so it's not going to take a lot of books to be. At least those books are a little bit easier to come by, I feel. Especially if you're early game. If you're not early game, you've probably got a load of rare books just sat there. So, you know, I think she'll be quite good for Doom Tower. Then, now I could be wrong about this one because I'd swear I've never seen it before. Maybe I've just not noticed and not looked, but I'd swear this one's new. We've got Sundried. Heals this champion by 10% of the damage inflicted, which is kind of nice for an A1. And then obviously she is an uncommon, so she's basically got just 2 abilities. Sacrifices HP equal to 10% of this champion's max HP, then heals this a target ally by 10% of their max HP. Also has a 40% chance of placing a 7.5% continuous heal buff on that ally for 1 turn. The HP sacrifice will happen even if it kills the champion. Can't say she's overly great, and again, book hungry. And since you will need those rare books, you know, nothing special there. But we've got a new uncommon by the looks of it. Unless I'm wrong. If I am, please let me know in the comments without reaming me too much. And we're down to the demon spawn. We're moving on at a nice clip here, not too bad. So we've got, I could be wrong, I swear this one isn't in the fragments. Achak the Wendering. Looks a little bit like Krampus, doesn't he? I'm sure he's supposed to, but you know, I do think that's a really cool look. So we've got Devour All Hope. This guy's got some interesting abilities, so we will actually read through these. Attacks one enemy, has a 30% chance of decreasing the duration of a random buff if the target's under a HP burn debuff. Also has a 30% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 15% if they're under a freeze debuff. This will make more sense as we go through the abilities. Again, extremely book hungry though, that's the only problem. You know, you can get that 30% up to what, 40, 50%, which is better, but why they have felt the need to put these damage books in between, or not just put it up by 10 at a time, I don't know. This champion is just going to eat your books. Ugh, yeah, I mean, yeah, we're not going to dwell on that anymore. It's just disgusting, absolutely disgusting. Places the A2 is on a 5-turn cooldown, 4 when booked. Cannibal Might places a block debuff buff on all allies for 1 turn and a 25% strengthen buff on all allies for 2 turns. Not brilliant, and I would have preferred if the block buffs was for 2 turns, but still an interesting little ability, help keep people up. The A3 Frostfire Gale attacks all enemies, has a 70% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn on enemies whose attack is higher than their defense. Has a 70% chance of placing a HP burn debuff for 1 turn on enemies whose defense is equal to or higher than their attack. So this is where the A1 then comes in. So you lead off with something like this. They're going to have one or the other, hopefully. Again, so many books. Cool ability. It's going to take a lot of books to do. And then also has an aura, increases ally defense in all battles by 25%, which is really nice. So all in all, a pretty interesting champion, I think. And let's see, have we got anybody else in the Demon Spawn? I don't think so. Don't think so, no. Moving on to the Undead Hordes, there's not much here. But what is here is extremely cool. So we have a Void Legendary. Why on earth we needed more undead, I don't know. The champion looks really cool. I suppose it's because they like making undead champions, because they do look cool in there, and they've got more ideas for them, and they're struggling with ideas for dwarves, let's say, who are woefully under numbered for champions. But this champion just looks, I mean, look at the aesthetic here. Absolutely amazing. Necret the Great. Void champion, as we say, defense base, so that's really cool. Look at all these abilities and passives and whatnot. This guy's got it all. He also takes a lot of books. Tombglaive attacks one enemy 3 times each. It has a 20% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack debuff for 1 turn. This effect cannot be resisted. Again, only books up to 30. Alright, it's a 3 hitter, so you could argue maybe like 90. It's okay, it's not brilliant. Personally, if you know, you've got a legendary, void legendary, I'd want this to be at 100% maybe. Or the books to just give a slightly higher percentage, because obviously that percentage is still on each hit, so you could in theory still get none. Legion of the Damned, 5 turn cooldown, 4 when booked. Teams up with allies to attack one enemy. All allies under allied protection buffs placed by this champion will join the attack. Allies joining the attack will use their default skills. Grants an extra turn if the attack does not kill the target, which is pretty cool. He's then got a number of abilities that put out allied protection, which, so yeah, you know, he is a very interesting champion. Disturbed Infusion, 4 turns, 3 when booked, places a block debuff buff, a 50% allied protection buff, and a 25% strengthen buff on one ally for 3 turns. The allied protection buff cannot be removed, so this is pretty cool. It's on a 3 turn cooldown, so you can effectively be putting this up all the time near enough, or as soon as it falls off, which is pretty cool for the allied protection anyway. Passive number 1, Unsleeping Aegis. Whenever an ally is attacked while under an ally protection buff, placed by this champion, places a shield buff on the ally equal to 30% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns. Personally, I'd rather they'd done like a shield equal to their defense or something, since they're a defensive champion, but you know, or make the champion a HP champion. Would have made more sense. Occurs only if the ally does not already have a shield buff placed by this champion, which is fair enough. Also decreases the cooldown of this champion's Legion of the Damned skill by 2 turns if the shield buff is placed. So, you know, that's pretty cool. You can actually get that down quite quickly. That's ally attack, ally attack, ally attack coming around quite a lot if you manage that. Places a block debuffs buff and a 25% strengthen buff for 3 turns on the ally with the lowest max HP at the start of each round. Also places a 50% ally protection buff on them for 6 turns. 6 turns, and the ally protection buff cannot be removed. In theory, with this champion, if you do things just right, you could in theory have a full team ally attack, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of having to get these buffs, having to get that on there, but I still think he's an interesting champion. He's definitely one I'd like to look at. He's got an aura, increases ally resist in all battles by 60, which is pretty cool. Don't believe there's any more here. Oh no, there is one more, sorry. Balthus, Drauglord. Balthus. I'm not going to go into his abilities, to be honest. If you're interested, go take a look. Personally, he looks okay. It's obviously like that corpulent cadaver or whatever skin, made to look a bit cooler for an epic, but he looks alright. He doesn't look amazing, and quite frankly his abilities leave me rather underwhelmed. We'll go for a quick. He's got decreased attack, but not a huge chance. AoE decreased crit rate. He's got a provoke, but it's one enemy. It's okay. It does some heal, and he's got a reflect on a passive reflect. You know, I'm not overly impressed with him myself. And I believe he's the last one there. Into the Dark Elves. I don't think there's actually any new ones here in the Dark Elves, which makes sense because there's so bloody many of them already. Night Revenants. There is, I believe, one. Rector Drath. Looks like some sort of official, doesn't they? Weird official with a slight sort of Princess Leia hairdo going on. But without the Princess Leia face. But yeah, still interesting skin. I say he, I think it's actually a she. Yeah, kind of hideous she. We might as well take a look at her since she's the only one here. Obviously she's an epic support champion. Attacks one enemy, has a 35% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack buff. Again, this can be increased by 15% up to 50, so it's alright, but it's not great. Then we've got Necro Mutation, heals all allies by 20% of this champion's max HP. After healing, places a perfect veil for 2 turns on all allies with full HP. Places a 15% continuous heal buff for 1 turn instead on all allies with less than 100%. So that's a pretty cool heal ability, I have to say. Then we've got Spirit Form, revives a single ally with 60% HP and fills their turn meter by 60%. Places a perfect veil on them for 3 turns. This champion is actually very cool for this, I have to say. Good heals, got a revive, and you know, there's either very little or nobody with that in this faction already, so I think that's great. Then we've got Master of Ghosts for a passive. Whenever an ally under a veil or a perfect veil gets a turn, heals them by 10% of their max HP. Also increases the resistance of allies under veil or perfect veil. Will only increase resistance once per ally for 1, even if there's like multiple Rectors on the team, which is fair enough. Still, and then we've got increases ally resist in the Doom Tower by 55. I actually rather like this champion. Not a huge fan of the skin. It's interesting, but a bit dour. But yeah, got some pretty cool kit here for an epic. And I believe that's the only one here. It looks like it, and we're down to our last faction. And the Dwarves, the woefully underpopulated Dwarves. Yes, Plarium, I will keep hammering at this until you get the idea and start doing more Dwarves, especially legendaries. How many new legendaries have we got in this last month? And not one of them is a dwarf. I mean, come off it. Anyway, Rungor Gold Gleam is an epic attack champion, and I have to say he looks absolutely blooming amazing. Like, just look at that axe, look at the overall aesthetic. He almost looks like he belongs in the Undead with those red eyes, but you know, he is a very cool looking champion, I have to say. So we've got Thirsty Axe, attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a leech debuff for 2 turns. On an A1, that is very cool. Can be increased up to 60. A2 sacrifices HP equal to 15% of this champion's max HP, then fills this champion's turn meter by 75%, and places a shield buff on this champion equal to 20% of their max HP for 3 turns. This is cool, but not brilliant, and again, it's a selfish ability. I'm not a huge fan of selfish abilities myself, but you know, at least he's given the whole team a heal there, I suppose, by putting the leech out, and then he's got this to help keep himself up. Then we've got Gleam of Avarice, places a 50% increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns, then attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a 25% weaken for 2 turns. Also has a 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff on the champion for 2 turns before attacking. This I do like. Increased attack, decreased defense, and weaken all in one ability on a epic void champion. Too many books again, but that is a cool ability, I have to say. Then we've got a passive, decreases the cooldown of this champion's Gleam of Avarice skill by 1 turn every time this champion loses 15% HP. HP loss is accumulated and tracked over multiple turns, attacks or hits, and it's not affected by healing or other HP increases. increase ally attack in the Doom Tower by 35%, so that's pretty cool. Very cool looking champion. I'm still very impressed with that one. Then we've got Kurzan Deep Heart. What can I say? Recognise the skin. Attacks one enemy, places an extra hit if the attack's critical, and extra hit places 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. That's nice on an A1. I kind of don't like the equivocation of needing it to be on the second hit, mind you. That's kind of pointless. Attacks all enemies. Each critical hit fills the champion's turn meter by 7.5%. So that's pretty cool. Again, it's a shame it's selfish, but it's still cool. Places a 50% increase accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns, then attacks all enemies. Has a 75% chance of placing a 30% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. So not bad. Again, a very interesting champion. And I could be wrong actually. Yeah, I missed this one off actually. I didn't even notice this one. We've got another uncommon to review, and we'll be both looking at them for the first time because I've not seen them before. Again, pretty much the same skin, only with a sort of slightly chilled and more sort of undead looking vibe, I have to say. Kind of looks like one of the walkers from ice people from Game of Thrones. What with the teeth and the eyes. Frosty Pick attacks one enemy. It's an uncommon. Noggin Knocker. I do like the name there. That does amuse me, I have to say. Attacks one enemy, has a 15% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. That can be increased by 15%, so up to 30. Again, he's an uncommon. You can get it down to a 3-turn cooldown. Let's face it, he's a very cool looking champion, more so than the other one, I think. But who's really going to use him? I mean, you might do, you know, especially if he's easy to get and you're struggling for champions in this faction. But again, he's not amazing. So anyway, that's the full roundup. I'm sorry it's been a 40-minute video, or thereabouts. It will be a bit shorter by the time I've edited this down a little bit. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. That lets YouTube know it was a good video. And you know, if you do like my material, please click that subscribe button and click that bell notification button. You'll get notified on my next upload. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.